Good morning. This is Talking Devils. I'm Wayne, joined as always by United legend Paul Parker. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm good, thank you, Wayne. Even
Good.
maybe better, 3 wins on the bounce. It's been a bit of a rarity, hasn't it?
I know, right? It's got us dreaming of top four, which is ludicrous when you think about Manchester United standards, but that is where we are, and we are beacons of positivity. So 3 wins on the bounce and 3 good wins as well, I should say. um, Achieved in different manners. If you're watching live on YouTube or Twitter, if you can get your comments and questions in. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, feel free to comment because we do reply to the comments. And if you're listening back on the audio podcast, if you can subscribe and leave a positive review on the platform you're listening on. And before we get to it, thanks to everyone who listened to the podcast I produced for Manchester United last week on the Munich disaster, which was cutting together from the Tom Tyrrell archive interviews with Jackie Blanchflower, Bill Fawkes, and Albert Scanlon, which were done in 1998 to mark the 40th anniversary of the disaster. Some really raw, emotional comments in there from all three, really. But real honour to work on it and for the club to put it out. So for everyone who was listening to that, I really appreciate your feedback and your shares and everyone being very kind about it. So thank you for that. Paul, Aston Villa 1, Manchester United 2. At one point early in the second half, it felt like it was going to be a very, very long afternoon for United. And it was really. I mean, it was definitely long in trying to get that result. But United came through it. A number of hurdles leaped, but as always with this United team, first of all, you don't want to jump to any conclusions too soon and say they've turned the corner and blah blah blah, because I think we were all quite familiar with the composition of the squad and the capability of the players. But I suppose from now until the end of the season, it's about crossing the hurdles that are in front of you. And United did enough to answer that yesterday. Højlund scored early on, doing well. I messaged you in the sort of duration of the game saying this is probably the most effective I've ever seen Maguire at United, and surprisingly, Unai Emery didn't have the tactical awareness to sort of combat that. But Maguire from corners only needed to be effective once, and it was. Højlund scored. Then Villa had a really good wave of pressure, got a deserved equaliser, probably deserved to be in front at some point, but United rode that storm, brought on McTominay, and McTominay for the upteenth time this season scored from the bench, and a late winner as well, not the first time he's done that. And United get a crucial win at Villa Park if they are to qualify for the Champions League. I've gone on record many times this season as saying I don't really think that that's important for the club this season, but for the players who only have an finite number of seasons in which they can compete in the Champions League, obviously it is important for them. And United got over that hurdle. They managed to do so despite the injury to Martinez, despite the injury to Shaw at half time, despite the repositioning, despite the two bookings for Casemiro and Kobe Mainu, which made you think that one of them would get sent off in the second half. They rode all those storms and got a crucial win. We'll talk about the individuals in a little while, Paul. But in terms of performance, obviously not the best, but it was a big win for United for the first time that Ten Hag's won a game against an away game against a top 9 opponent, which is crazy when you think he's been there for almost 2 years, but a significant one and a significant time to get it.
Yeah, when you're saying that, it was mentioned yesterday that as well about beating a top 9 opponent. You think yourself, again, blimey. Normally you'd be talking about a top 4, wouldn't you, or a top 3 opponent. Now it's stretched out to 9, so it tells you the levels that United are in at this moment in time. Or does it mean that the league is more competitive than what it's ever been? Teams are a lot closer to each other than what they have been for a number of seasons. So I look at it, and the goal come at a good time. It come when United had a had a good spell, maybe their best spell of the whole game, to be honest, other than the winning goal, I would say that. I mean, even though it was a small bit, but they got something out of it. When you look at still trying to build play, they were still quite poor, but they still had Villa under a bit of pressure. Villa looked like a side that everything has been taken out of them from the fact of losing that unbeaten home record to Newcastle, and they haven't really played. They've lost their ways slightly, which is quite normal in certain ways. If you're a team that has been playing maybe a little bit above yourself, that drop down is very difficult again to climb back up again so quickly. So this is when Emery's going to be tested. But they got themselves in front and they did what they've been doing for a long, long time. They suddenly just sat deep. And they're not very good at doing that because the midfield isn't maybe as busy, as fleet-footed as a lot of other teams in midfield. And Villa were just getting through them so quickly and getting to the back four. And it was a lack of sensing danger on the right-hand side of the defence that was causing problems between Dalot. Dalot was playing too wide. He wasn't getting close to Raphael Varane. And so it was allowing gaps in between there. Varane was being taken one side and Dalot, for some reason, wanted to mark the touchline. And they'd done that on 3 or 4 occasions, got in on that side, especially, what's his name, the young lad, Jacob Ramsey, yeah, on quite, and it's only just the fact of, I don't know, was it naive or he's not really that kind of instinctive finisher that may be why United coming at half time 1-0 up really, when if they'd have gone in at least drawing, everyone would have said that's fair enough. Come out second half, and as we know in the last couple of games, come out second half, and they've been quite poor. They haven't really been up to it from the kickoff, from the start of the second half, stamping their authority on being in front. And again, Villa gained control, took over the game. And it was just really, again, it was last ditch. The keeper made saves. I mean, one of them he didn't know about. I think the one of them that hit him there from Ramsey again, I think that was, no, it wasn't. It was Ollie Watkins. He didn't know anything about it. He just hit him there and bang. Lucky enough, it pops away. Very similar to a save in the first half as well. But it was always a concern every time that Villa went close. But I must say, Scott McTominay comes on, and I'm getting concerned that he's putting an extra man in defence, and I don't like too many chefs in the kitchen because it causes confusion. But it seemed like he put him, and virtually told him to go and be where Marcus Rashford, go and play it off the left-hand side. And he'd done something that Marcus Rashford never done all game. He ran without the ball. And that run without the ball allowed him to make a run inside of Matty Cash. And Matty Cash couldn't deal with it. Simple as that. And that was something that you think to yourself, that Marcus Rashford should really know. But just apologise, my granddaughter's just coming in now, and so and now she's leaving the room. I don't know how she's managed to do that. I didn't close the door properly. So Matty Cash, I think he might have had it quite easy in the sense of Marcus Rashford wasn't running without the ball, and he just lost that train of thought. And Scott McTominay, once he gets his shoulder in front of you for a big, strong, determined lad, you're not going to get back the other side of him. And Matty Cash couldn't. And it was a great run, and it was a great header as well. Not a chance. And that's what it needed, really. And for the first time, a wide player done that. It might, if he didn't get the ball, you'd still be seen as an unselfish run to affect a player, and it creates space. But the timing of it was excellent, and the finish was excellent. And then when you look at it, I have to say, if I looked at the 3 performances and what they put into a game, I would say that was the main game, really. That was the most important game. Because after those 2 wins, when they weren't great in the sense you're just taking wins, they went into a game at Villa Park where everyone was waiting for Villa to step forward and beat Manchester United. And I think a lot of people didn't see United winning that game, and they come out of it unscathed in the end with a good, really good winning goal. My biggest concern again, which has happened in the last 3 games, might have happened before, is that again Højlund wasn't in the game in the second half because of the way United played. He
Yeah,
dropped far too deep. They made him ineffective because he was having to come so deep to get the ball that he couldn't do the job he has been doing, is scoring goals or getting the opportunities. So somehow, and again, I know what the issue is, and they miss Martinez because he's
yeah,
the one that brings it up. He forces the issue of the ball up. He doesn't dally on the ball.
yeah,
Everything is bang. Even if he's going to get it straight back, Wayne, he affects things by just moving the ball quickly, one, two touches, three at the most, and it's played. It's gone. Just to move people, not this dawdling, ambling. It was, it was doing me. It was. I just don't see how football's got like that.
yeah,
Pass and move was always the way.
yeah. Especially like Onana. I know Neville went apoplectic about it a couple of times in commentary. Like, and it is frustrating to see when Onana just has the ball for 10, 15 seconds, and you're thinking that all the momentum of anything. United are usually so well traditionally meant to be rapid at building from the back end. That's what we presumed he was there to do, but not. I mean, once United had the ball, their progression was pretty good, but because of that, because Villa are hunters from the front of the pack, that you're inviting trouble for no reason. I will say that my thought on us, the Hoyland issue, is, and it's probably overstating it, but there's probably a little bit of truth in there. Is that once Hoyland, I think there's been this anxiety for Hoyland to get goals throughout the team, and normally, if a player's going through a drought, you wouldn't normally get all the team that bothered about it because it's about winning the game first, especially United. I do remember the exception of and I don't know if you played in the game. I think, well, you must have done the Coventry game at home, Brian Robson's last game, where everyone was trying to get Robbo to score because he was on 99 for United. I'm not saying it's like that with Hoyland, but what I do think is that when Hoyland gets on the score sheet, and he's been doing that quite early on in all the games, is that I feel like Garnacho and Rashford feel that they've got carte blanche to be greedy after that. And I think that's an issue because obviously it takes Hoyland out of the game. And we've seen now that there's strength in playing it into him because we get more goals. The more goals we get, the more chance we've got of winning, the more chance we've got of building big leads, the more space you're going to get as teams try and get into the game, which is perfect for players like Garnacho and Rashford. And if they play the longer game with that, then they can afford to be greedy in later parts of games, but not at the moment. And I think I think Garnacho can mature and will mature. Rashford should already be there. And to be fair, until let's say before the second half, I thought Rashford actually played all right. He was doing what he needed to do. But United ground out the win. Important, important result, if somewhat unimpressive. But I mean, Paul, there are ways to win football matches, and now 2 trips to the Midlands in the last couple of weeks, both won late on. For a team that's had been so low on confidence over the season, where they've had so many poor results, even though they're narrow wins and not really convincing on the face of it, you can't really discount the value of the momentum that you get from two late winners like that. And it's about now manifesting that into greater, more confident performances, isn't it? I just don't know how did they go about that, because I mean, we all like to see last minute winners, but they should be the exception rather than the rule, shouldn't they?
Yeah, without doubt, especially if you're Manchester United as well. And I've always said it's about performances, and now it is about trying to get a better performances from individuals and collectively as well. And it looked that way in that first 45 minutes with Martinez when he played. It looked a lot better. Everyone looked confident. That's the presence he's got. I don't know how good his English is, but I know that his actions forces a lot out of players. He gets more from the players and from the team. And the last, when we look at the the games, you look at the game yesterday, and you could see that he was missed. Definitely
Yeah,
was missed. Varane misses him. You can see
yeah,
it. Even though Varane did well again, but he's still a person whose career, he's had a great career, but he's always been led by people. And as we know, the man who led him through his career at Real Madrid. So the team have got to go into the next game, but they need to add a little bit to it, because you can't keep playing on the edge like this, to be perfectly honest, because you will get caught out. And as we know, is that the press can't wait to round on Ten Hag if he loses a game, and then name people who's going to take his job, and then throw up all these different things. I mean, everything seems to be geared on the football world is about United. What can we talk about? Last week was all about the grounds. It's caused issues with the ground, and we should do new one, refurbish everything like that. And so I wonder what it's going to be this week. I'll put the telly on in a minute and see what line Sky Sports are going to go about. They suddenly start talking big problems at Villa. That's why Manchester United won, and talk about Villa problems, something like that, something derogatory along the way. But as we know already, Højlund has, he's not been talked about so much now because he's scoring goals, because he was a massive issue before, waste of money. So they need performances now, and that's the thing. They've set so many bars now where they should be, that once they drop below any of them, people want to round on them and turn things around. So performances are needed. The next game is just as important as the last one, just as important now, because it's got to be another win. It's got to come in the next game, and a little bit more of a solid performance, a little bit more control has got to come. And I still look at the wide players, and I'm still going to have my reservations about both of them, because every time I see them running or doing anything with the ball, I never see heads lifting, looking what's in front of them, never see the early one, never think that, even up to this time, they don't seem to know that the moment they start to run with the ball, that Højlund is making runs in front of them. They never do it. They never use his runs. Even if they see him run wide, it's not the fact of them giving it, it's the fact of them not seeing the space that might be created in the middle. And how many runs I saw Fernandes make through the middle was incredible. The amount of runs he made forward, but he didn't hardly receive the ball.
Yeah.
And I just don't, there's no delivery into the box. People know it now. They just virtually just go narrow, because they know that there's no points. As a back four, they just do that, knowing that the ball's always going to, because they're going to step inside, always looking to shoot. Especially Garnacho, who's always looking just to get on his weaker foot and still trying that. And you've got the other side, Marcus Rashford, still running into cul-de-sacs, still running, keep going and going in. And they're the bit, and you think to yourself, surely someone's telling them, and we know that people are telling them, because the amount of coaches and what they're earning says that they know basically if there's 2-3 people in front of you and you've got people around you, use them.
Yeah.
So they're telling him that, and it just seems neither of them are actually listening or understanding it. And I could understand Garnacho gets away with it to a point, but you look at the amount of games he's had now, that you think yourself, maybe he should know a little bit better now. Marcus Rashford, given the status he's got and everything surrounding him, his age, I don't know whether he's still playing his own game. That's the problem. I mean, Ten Hag took him off, which was a rarity, and now it's seen as maybe one of his most positive substitutions in weeks. Because look at the impact it had. Well, a lot of his substitutions he's done over his last 2 or 3 games, I've questioned them because he's put the team under more pressure when he's gone and done it. And he was he didn't do what he normally does with his substitutions. He made that one substitution and bang, straight away there was the impact. It changed it, because you had a player who was unselfish in making a run, hoping the ball was going to be delivered. So,
definitely. I mean, and it's nice as well, because I think we are, or at least we try to be, a podcast where we, or I'm not speaking for you, but I feel like over the years where we've been critical of players, we've also, when they deserve praise, as you have done so far with McTominay, that we've been quick to give that, and he was obviously that commitment that proved the difference yesterday. And he made a comment. I'm going to come back to it because be a little bit of a shorter pod this week, so we don't have Dave rambling on, like Dave waffles when he's on. He's getting some sleep now because he saw his team lost in that American sport thing that they played overnight. A couple of people just to say good morning to Vicky, Asbjorn and Mike. Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. Paul, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but as you were saying it, you were talking about like last week's news being either redevelopment of Old Trafford or a new stadium being built on the same grounds. I'd like to get your thoughts on this because I was thinking you were at the club at a time where we redeveloped the Stretford end. We moved the tunnel and the changing rooms, so you moved down into the corner. Then they redeveloped the north stand as well. So you were at the ground when there was this period of great change at Old Trafford. So I guess you're well placed to talk about tradition and evolution and things like that. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are sentimentally attached to United and staying at Old Trafford because of the fact that it's been the ground for over 100 years. It was the home of the Busby Babes. It was the site of the game where we played after Munich against Sheffield Wednesday. It was the site of the game where we played against Everton. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago with when you came out after Sir Matt died. Two of the most emotional nights in United history, afternoons in United history, were played at Old Trafford. So there is a big sentimental attachment there, and all of my memories of supporting United are there. But I do look at United's history, and where people say that it's messing with tradition, maybe we should also remember that when Emery was, Davis, when Davis was the owner of the club, he financed a new stadium, and then when Gibson was chairman, he basically spent his money on the rebuilding of the ground after the bombing and everything like that, and he wanted it to be, the palace that United had originally hoped that it would be. So there is at least evidence of United moving grounds. It's part of their tradition as well. Where do you stand on this debate? Do you feel like United should stay where they are and redevelop, or do you think that the hurdles of developing the South Stand, for example, mean that it's probably time to have a new stadium built? You've gone silent there, Paul. I think I've muted you by accident. If you can unmute yourself there.
What about now?
We're back. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah.
Right. I'm more for a refurb, to be perfectly honest, Wayne. I really am. I look at it now and about just maybe even just moving just slightly behind or something. I mean, I've lost the way now. Every time I go back to Manchester, I start trying to think of how things were. But then I think about, I'm sure that people who have lived up in Manchester a lot longer would mostly are struggling as well, what's happening to Manchester in the last few years. But I'm looking at a refurb really of the grounds rather than moving, because I've been to Tottenham a lot of times. I've been working at Spurs. I went there so many times during lockdown. It was taking me 35 minutes to drive it. Now you can't get anywhere near driving it in 35 minutes in a normal, because it's just ridiculous to traffic. So I was going there, I was walking around it, and I was going, wow. Just inside of it, when it was empty, the concourses are massive. I mean, concourses have got to be about 50, 60 meters wide. The concourses, they're incredible. I mean, when they're busy, but still, it's still comfortable busy. And I can imagine, you go in OT and you're walking through, it is what it is. But Tottenham is a great ground, and I've sat in all different bits. I've been in the press bit, I've been in their kind of lower the bits where they've got their different levels of corporate, and it's really nice. The service is good. I've done the major one, very fortunate to be invited and gone gone proper Roy King prawn sandwich, proper. And you sit in a loop. They don't have boxes. They have louvs. They call them big kind of settees, high ones, like the waltzers at the fairs. The big waltzer kind of seats, rounded, the front, and then you go to these doors. You had heated seats. It was absolutely amazing. But it's a venue. It's not a football ground. And the problem is that anything's going to get built now for Manchester United will turn into a venue. That's what they're going to want to make it into, a venue, not a football ground.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's like virtually like when the FC was removed or the football club was removed from the badge. You're going to have a ground which is going to become a venue. It's going to be able to service it so it services every sport. And football is not going to be sitting there as the principal one, to be perfectly honest. Tottenham's pitch flips and does everything. I mean, there's underneath it. There's got a bit for driving underneath it. They've got a go-kart track. They can do F1 testing and things when you go underneath it. Plus, obviously, the football pitch, the American football pitch as well. So I'd just rather Manchester United refurb.
Yeah.
Still, I don't mean make it any bigger than what it is, but just refurb it. And can they do that along those lines and go down there rather than everybody, because of this new this proportion of shares have been moved to someone else. I'm thinking to myself, is everyone blowing everything up big because it's this and thinking it's a complete 100% sale with new owners in there? Because to go and do that, what they're talking about, how much money then goes on the pitch, which is the most important part. Well, maybe as years go on, that will change, because I think if the club becomes a venue, then it means that straight away you're going to actually lose your hardcore fans, because they're going to be priced out of the market in certain ways. And you just end up people turning up to take more pictures of themselves in this venue. And, oh yeah, better turn around because there's a game going on while I'm having my picture taken. So it becomes a little bit like that. I'm seeing that at Spurs, a lot of Spurs fans. And again, I'm in a big West Ham area, but there's still Tottenham fans, a lot of Tottenham fans in this area as well. And even, themselves, they love what's happened, what they've gone and done, Tottenham. But still, their heart was always with White Hart Lane as it was, because they've moved slightly, but they've made 100% complete change, Yeah. So I don't know. Obviously, I don't speak for everybody. I'm not a Mancunian. I'm just someone who played there for 5 years. Been back and forth so many times since I've left, but someone who still enjoys going there. To suddenly go to a new ground, I don't know how the reaction to that would be for me, to be honest. But given that, the time it's going to take, I don't know if I'll be walking properly and be able to go. I don't know when it's going to happen or anything. Age is going to be at the forefront.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not agreeing with you there, Paul. I'm sure you'll be fine. And a big part of United history, not just 5 years, but 5 significant years. Mike says has to be a new stadium. I understand the emotional investment in staying, but we have to move with the times. Look at Spurs Stadium, for example. I guess he's using the same example as you, but for different reasons. Amazing facilities and comfortable for fans. And maybe the idea is that you can't reach that kind of level without rebuilding completely because of the space constraints and everything like that. I'm open-minded on it because what will be will be, and I'm not in charge of that decision. So you just have to be braced and comfortable for whatever that decision is. I don't think it's anything, like I've said earlier, that I don't think it's anything that contravenes the fact that there's nostalgia and an attachment there. There are certain elements about Old Trafford that can be moved around. I mean, you can still preserve the original tunnel. You can move the bricks if that's a thing that's necessary. Perhaps the only thing that has any anchored involvement in there is the statue of Jimmy Murphy, because of where it's placed. He's overlooking the pitch, and look who's decided to join us. Mr. Murphy is here. Dave, we are talking about the redevelopment of Old Trafford versus a new stadium. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for taking some time after drowning your sorrows in watching your team lose overnight. What's your thoughts on the redevelopment of Old Trafford versus a new stadium being built? Paul is for the redevelopment. I'm on the fence, so you've got the casting vote.
Yeah, sorry, I'm late. I was up watching the second greatest show on earth. Obviously, this is the first one. But yeah, it was demoralising to lose to the Chiefs. Anyway, stadium. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence as well. I'd really like this. I think it's one of those things where, and I know this is kind of selfish, but I'd like to see plans for both before making that decision. Obviously, I'd love to stay at Old Trafford in the current format that it's in, or in the current place that it's in. But redevelopment is obviously a massive need at Old Trafford. You look at the Bernabeu and look what they did with that stadium. And I think that cost 300-400 million to redevelop that. And it's an absolutely phenomenal stadium right now. But then I'm not opposed to a brand new stadium right next door. My concern about redeveloping Old Trafford is, what do we do during that year or 2 years? We all know it never goes the length that they say it is. I know Spurs had an awful time trying to get into their new stadium because of construction delays. That would be my concern. Where do we go during the redevelopment of Old Trafford? They'd obviously have to shut it down, or even shut down large pieces of it while it's being redeveloped. So that would be, again, for me, it would I think I would sway towards a brand new stadium. But I think as supporters, we'd like to see what the two options are on the table in regard to redevelopment versus a brand new stadium. We're the biggest club in the world. We should have the best stadium. We don't. We did 20 years ago, and we should get back to that as well. More of a redevelopment, but again, where would we go while that happens?
Well, I mean, I guess the City of Manchester Stadium can hold all the season ticket holders. It's just about the rest of that. But yeah, I'm on the fence with it, to be honest. I can see the pluses and minuses. We did get a comment there, isn't the train line the issue with the development? Yeah, and there was some issue with the houses behind the train line as well. And obviously, real estate in Stretford has gone quite high in the last few years, like everywhere, but especially in Stretford, it's probably 2.5 times as much now, which might be fairly minimal collateral damage as far as a football club are concerned in terms of redeveloping. So it's still not insignificant cost to be considering the fact that there are residents living there and everything like that, and it's quite it's traditional Manchester streets, tightly knit. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people to move around and everything like that. And that's notwithstanding the other issues that have been already in Old Trafford over the weekend, as we've seen, a lot of season ticket holders from the section just next to us have been moved around, including some legends like Norman Whiteside, who in the news about it. They're being repositioned because of the corporate seats that have been removed from the Stretford end. Unfortunately, when you move corporate seats from somewhere, you're going to have to move them somewhere else, and it's a difficult one to find a solution. Hopefully they will find one. Mike says, downsize Old Trafford for the youth and women's team, have new 100,000 stadium. So that seems to be a popular thing. I don't know about downsizing though. What would you do? Like chop some of the top off? No, Stand Tier 3 is a bit of a nosebleed to get to. Been there a couple of times. It's not fun to. I was up there for the Wolves game, and watching Onana give away a penalty that's not given in the last couple of minutes is scary enough, but terrifying when you're 4,000 feet in the air. So, Dave, you've already missed talking about the Villa game, unfortunately for you, but we will have a little interlude on before we talk about Luton, talking about the midfield of Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo. I'll come to Paul first on this, though. Kobbie was instrumental in the winning goal yesterday, doing well in the tight corner before kind of overrunning the ball, but allowing it to go to Dalot when he crosses for McTominay. Another good performance from Kobbie. And another fairly composed performance from Casemiro. He had a lot of criticism at the start of the season, but he's been good since he's come back, and they look like a decent partnership blooming. It just feels like they need to understand what each other's roles are in there. But it does feel like out of all the options that we've got at the moment, Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo is probably the best. What do you think?
It's good, but the problem is sorry, I'm just sort of staring at it. Ball retention is key. It has to be better to get the best out of those two. They spend so much time chasing around, and you always worry Casemiro chasing around. It was just like every time Casemiro makes a challenge, I'm kind of going like my one I used to do, like every time Eric used to make a tackle, I'm going, don't tackle, because you just worry about it. Casemiro got booked yesterday because of the fact of the referee was poor.
Yeah.
Matty Cash, I'm going to use the word because people are scared to use it, cheated.
Yeah.
He cheated and got him booked. The referee fell for it, where prior to that, he was quite good. And those two together are good. Both of them, if they get in possession of the ball, then they keep it better than anyone else in that midfield. Don't try not to give it away cheaply. The problem is that they're having to do so much work chasing back and forth, but they're not getting much help. And it's about them. Both of them are not quick move, not off the mark, not quick. Yeah. I saw it one time when Mainoo was running back, and you could just see it. He hasn't got that change of pace in that midfield, and that's what it lacks through the middle, that change of pace. How do you improve that? If you improve that, then you improve Manchester United a hell of a lot. And then if you've got that player as well who helps with ball retention, that would be a massive improvement. The midfield, especially getting Casemiro in there as well, the midfield went incredible. It changed really well. And we saw that last season, but you can see now it needs to move to the next level.
Yeah.
If that's without Casemiro, then it might be. Kobbie is the future, but it's about getting the right people to play with him, so people get even more out of him with the ability he's got, because he can keep the ball. He can keep the ball to himself. He's that confident in his own ability to be able to keep the ball, and the way the way he keeps it, his body strength, and the way he positions his body, people struggle to get it off of him.
Yeah.
But they're the only two in that midfield who do that. Fernandes gets up and back, but he's starting from poor areas. That's the problem. The two wide lads, hit and miss. As simple as that. It might be good names for them, really. I don't know who you'd call hit or who you call miss, though. But I like what's in there, but it's just about how they're doing their jobs at the moment.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, that, David, because, I mean, the whole point of United's progression is going to be that because they're still nowhere near, we don't even know if they're good enough. They should be good enough to be a Champions League side. I would have thought, considering, and I'm talking at a full complement, they're good enough to be a Champions League side. But scratch the surface, go down to the B-level players, then they're not good enough to be a Champions League side, and they are where they are. They're struggling to get in there. But the issue that comes with United, even at a full complement, is that they're still not good enough to be a title-winning side. So the point is always going to be about the better parts of the partnerships that we've got in the 1-2s and the 1-2-3s. Which players do you move on? Obviously, Paul's saying that Casemiro is probably due to his age more than anything, but also due to some of the attributes, not being quick and everything like that. That he's probably at not risk, but he's most likely to be the next person where there's an evolution, where you've got Kobbie in there. In the case, though, when you're looking at the options available, it's kind of like, well, all right, they're not quick, but what they bring us is so much more important than the other players. It's so much more positive than the attributes from the other players that you kind of see, well, it's not quick, but you just have to compensate in the other areas for that. You have to make sure that Garnacho and Rashford are pulling the weight, and it almost like with every improvement, you're asking different questions of the players, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, even our midfield was absolutely shocking. We had a terrible midfield and we had a terrible front line. We've stumbled into what I believe is probably our best front three right now. That is Garnacho on the right, Rashford on the left, and obviously Hoyland up front. I have seen a big improvement on Rashford in the past couple of games, where he's not doing that, running straight into a defender and expecting the defender just to miraculously get out of the way. His choices have been a hell of a lot better when he gets to that position. And Garnacho, on the right, I think we've seen him a few times last year playing there. And I was a little bit miffed we didn't try him more, but I understand why. You paid 80-something million for Anthony. You have to justify that. But I think Ten Hag has realised that maybe that's not the best. Maybe that's not the best choice on the right. With Kobe and Casemiro, I mean, it's the best that we have right now. I enjoy watching it. I think it's a huge improvement on what we previously had when Casemiro was on the sidelines. He's definitely playing a hell of a lot better, as you said earlier on, than he was at the start of the season. The start of the season, it looked like he forgot how to play football. Now he's actually been an improvement on that, but Mainu is just, I mean, everything the kid does, he does it right. As Paul said, he's just so difficult to get the ball off the way he positions his body, and he has that attribute that, and I don't want to put him in a world class bracket, but I believe he's heading in that direction. But he has that awareness around him of seeing the next pass before he even gets the ball, and that's just something some footballers have and some don't. I believe he has it, and he's going to have it in abundance. Each game he gets better. I know a couple of, I think it was just before Christmas, he made that mistake and gave away a goal. He could have just went into himself then and thought, well, you know what, my development. He's actually even got better since that game, but that tells me a lot about him. I think he is the future. He's a phenomenal player. Casemiro's not going to be around. That's where the problem lies, is who do we get in there? I think Casemiro has another season in him, and I'd love to see him there for another season, because I think Mainu is going to learn a lot off him. You cannot learn from someone like Casemiro. And right now, I'm just enjoying the fact that we have some of our spine back in the team. I did feel from yesterday, it was an absolutely horrendous yellow card, and I think it took the edge off Casemiro for the rest of the game, because he's become a Cantona, hasn't he, really, for that with referees. They love to give him a card. They want to send him off at any opportunity. And once he had that yellow card very early on in the game, I think it stunted him a little bit for the rest of the game. But that said, Mainu he's just exceptional to watch right now. He really is. But yeah, I'm loving the pairing right now, because it's a huge upgrade on what we had, and this is no disrespect to some of the players that were in there. It just wasn't working with them. Casemiro back. Unfortunately, we lost Martinez. Hopefully, Luke Shaw is just a precautionary thing, as the manager said. But I'm starting to enjoy United again, and I know I wasn't here for the Villa part. But that was a massive win yesterday. Absolutely massive, massive win. Not many teams go there and even get a point, let alone 3.
Yeah. Well, Newcastle did, didn't they? We are on the rise, and I think the good thing is at the moment, we've got to make it into a good thing, is that we're playing weekend to weekend rather than midweek, so we have the possibility or capability even to keep the same side together as much as possible. Obviously, notwithstanding the injuries that we've got, which. Like I said, Luke Shaw, you would hope that he'll be back for Luton. So let's talk about Luton then. One last point on I'm not going to ignore Mike's comment. After they both got booked in the first half, I was impressed by the second half performances. However, Casemiro's legs go after an hour. Everton's Onana a possible target to complement Mainu. Onana was mentioned a couple of times, wasn't he, in the summer, which obviously funny because we've already got one. Maybe he's a better goalkeeper than the one that we've got. I'm sorry. Onana played well yesterday, so I'm not on his back. So Luton Town started the season like they might well end up as the worst performing Premier League team of all time. They lost the first 4 home games, and they look really poor. But since November, they've really improved. And I'm not being patronising, because improvement even in the games where they've lost has been easy to see. I mean, they drew with Liverpool. They gave a really good account of themselves at Old Trafford. Narrow home defeats to Arsenal. That one was quite heartbreaking because it was the last kick of the game. Man City as well, they took them to the wire. They battered Brighton at Kenilworth Road. Brighton at Kenilworth Road. They won at Newcastle. Won at home to Newcastle. Drew 4-4 there. They were 2 goals up at one point. And then all those good results, and then they've lost this week to Sheffield United at home, which suggests to me it's a decent time for us to go there, Paul. But, obviously, it's not going to be an easy one because they've played so well, and obviously they're going to be up for this game. We played there a few years ago, actually. People will forget this. We played a League Cup game. I think Donny van der Beek scored down there. Obviously, dearly departed now. He's gone away, so we're going to have to find goals from somewhere other than Van der Beek. I wonder if we'll be able to mention it. Manage it even. Can't get my words out this morning. Paul, what do you reckon? Luton away, formidable task. Do you reckon it's one that United should be able to overcome?
First of all, they've had a few defeats, but that was their biggest margin, wasn't it? In defeat, 2 goals, wasn't it?
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah, that was their definitely this season anyway. I mean, I don't think it's a great time for United to go there. I think it's a real bad one, given that their fans were kind of looking at that Sheffield United game and were worried about it because of what they'd gone and done prior to that. That was one game which all the fans knew was maybe the most important one against Sheffield United. And it was like after the Lord Mayor show, wasn't it? With Newcastle and then what they'd done to Brighton.
Yeah.
They just lost their way. And with United going there next time, it's the one they've been waiting for. When I went there for the Luton v Palace, there were so many of them coming up to me, and it's the game they've been waiting for. They've been waiting for Manchester United to come back there for a league game. The last time was 91-92, and I played in that game. That was the last time there was any time, and it tells you how unlucky they've been in that. They had avoided going down, then you never know what could have happened to them if they'd have got a first season in the Premier League. Could things have been different for them as a club?
Did they still have the plastic pitch in 91-92?
No, they didn't. No. Yeah, they'd gone by then, yeah. I think QPR were the last team to have the plastic pitch. I think in 87, my first season there, 87, 88, was the last team to have a plastic pitch. So I think even
Fergie complaining about the not wanting players to go on if they had knee injuries, because if they had problems with the knees, because obviously it was terrible for the joints, wasn't it? But
it was, yeah. But then even if players didn't have trouble with their knees, they found them once they went on that pitch.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, we used to go on that pitch, you'd play on a Saturday, and Jim Smith used to bring us, come in on a Monday, we're going to train at the ground on Monday. After playing 90 minutes on that pitch, you go back in 2 days later, you go in there on a Monday morning and try and move your legs. You think somebody has swapped your legs for bags of cement. Your thighs were just absolutely killing you. But then as well, there was others who couldn't run because you had all the big scars on our knees, not scars, just open wounds still going. So it was tough for that season, my first season at top level. It was good in certain ways, but it was terrible. The amount of times I was driving home with, excuse me for saying this, with pus falling out from all over my body of the wounds on elbows and knees and my backside. But Luton is going to be tough, regardless of Manchester United league position, regardless of the fact of they haven't been great this season. It's still the best show in the country. They're going to want to be. That place will be packed. They'll have more people there than what they've had before. People even just standing outside. They'll all be there waiting. It was no different to when I went there in 91, 92. And you've got to remember, I went there as a QPR player before, but when I went there as a Manchester United player, it was completely different. Especially when you go when that built-up area. If anyone hasn't been to Kenilworth Road, they have to go for an experience to understand what that ground is all about. And you get there, and you can't not really feel a bit for them. And I'm hoping that Luton stay up. Obviously, drop 3 points in their next game, but I'm hoping that they stay up so they can actually get themselves going again for what they're being put through by the Football League and all the different authorities. They deserve something from it, but they are a tough team to beat. And their greatest strength is they haven't forgotten where they come from. The way they play their football, they play the football that got them into that league. They haven't suddenly decided to be like Burnley, start the plastic football in one season, get up and carry it on, thinking you can just carry on and do the same up against better quality players who are going to be sharper, going to be quicker, and sense more things than what they did in the Championship. And that's the reason why Luton has taken them a while, and that's the reason why they've got themselves up, because the manager is just saying, we're going to do the basics. We're doing it and doing it repetitively. And the manager seems a really, really good bloke from his background and where he's come from. Good speaker, says the right things, and I think he means it as well. So it is going to be another challenge, a real challenge. And hopefully the players start right. But if they go and sit deep against a Luton, they'll just straight away you'll turn around and you'll think you're watching a lower division game, because they're just going to be putting everything there and virtually asking everyone, are you brave enough to keep doing this for 90 minutes?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Ten Hag approaches that with his starting selection, Dave. Does he, do you put McTominay in from the start for the battle, or do you just go with the team that started against Villa? It's going to be an interesting one. I remember Luton, obviously the plastic pitch era in 91-92, Paul's first season, but there was also the very real possibility that we could have played them in the 94 Cup final. They had a really good run with Scott Oakes, and
Yes.
And they lost to Chelsea in the semi. But I remember thinking, oh God, it would have been good to play them in the final. They were a good cup team around that time. Fortunately, it didn't happen. We did play them in the League Cup a few years ago, and now we've got them in the league. And like Paul said, 17th in the table at the moment. So they've picking up the wins where they can find them. And this is going to be, without wanting to use a cliche, this is their cup final really at the weekend, and you can tell the interest again because it's Sky's headline pick of the weekend's fixtures, putting them at 4:30 on Sunday. What are you expecting to see next weekend?
I think I myself and Paul talked about this a while back as well. As soon as Luton got up, 99% of their players, staff, fans, they looked for this game. 100% they did. This was the game. This was, getting into the Premier League is obviously a massive reward for all the hard work. But these are the games that are the extra, bonuses. Manchester United coming to town, 100%. Actually, they would have just looked across that and said, "When are we playing United?" Families would have built their weekends around this. No holidays, no nothing, no family members. This is the game that they want to see, and I think it's going to be very, very tough for United going there. There's going to be a bit of a culture shock for United going there. It's a really tight ground. I love it. I think it's a fantastic ground. The crowd are going to be really up for it. Getting beat the weekend is not going to help us. I don't think. I think it's going to make them even more determined, because they're really down there in that mire right now. I have kind of a soft spot for our manager. I think he's a very honest guy. He's likable. He hasn't taken on the Premier League glow as some managers do. When they come up, they think that's it, I've made it now, and they get annihilated and go back down and disappear. I have, if I do have a soft spot for any team under this steely outside, it's Luton. I think the journey they've been on for the past 4 or 5 years has been absolutely phenomenal. It's not easy to get out of those divisions, and they come up into the Premier League. I kind of want to see them stay up, but not at the expense of 3 points from United. It's going to, like I said, it's going to be a very intimidating crowd. The supporters are practically on the pitch, and these guys are going to be it's going to be a really, really tough game. Like most teams that come up, Manchester United is always their cup final, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it is. And it's going to be a very, very, very hard game. We've got to be on top of our game. Like I said, I don't think them getting beaten is going to really matter on how they approach this game. This is the game that, getting promoted and beating Manchester United at home, they'll probably talk about those two moments, forever, if they beat us. I do think we have a little bit extra in the tank. I think we're starting to really, really grow as a team now with the players that we have back. I definitely wouldn't change the side. that started. Although, you know, we do want a better pairing at centre back, but if that's our best centre back pairing at the moment, go with that. McTominay, I think he's become a very good player to bring on during the game when legs are starting to tire, because he just seems to be able to get into that box a lot more. You know, he's a fantastic athlete. So I wouldn't. I know it's not great when you score a winner, and then the following week you're back on the bench. But I don't think Scott McTominay starts for me in any team that we have, unless we have, you know, the midfield is designated. But I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him. I think just that's his best position right now, is coming off the bench with a bit of energy. But yeah, it's going to be a very, very tough game. I always, you know, as a United supporter, I always go into these games, you know, very concerned, because, like I said, these teams that come up, this is the one that they want. Playing at Old Trafford is obviously a huge thing for them as well, but playing in front of their own fans, you know, and Paul can attest to this, when Manchester United come into town, the home team just take it up a level, you know, whether it's both on the pitch and off the pitch. It's going to be a very tough game for Manchester United. It really is, regardless of them being, you know, fourth last in the table. Yeah, as you can see, they can score away from home. They scored 4 goals in Newcastle, which isn't easy. So they are going to be dangerous. They really, really are. But, you know, I'm hoping that our form continues. Haven't been beaten this season yet. This season, this year. This year, yeah. And I want to take that form into it. And, we've opened the door for top 4. It's important that we go to places like Luton and win, but it is going to be a very, very tough game.
Yeah. It's strange that, go from feeling like they're one of the most vulnerable sides in the league's history at the start of the season to us now looking at United on a good reform and still thinking, no, not completely confident about this. Interesting to see how we will fare in that one. That's it for this week. Thanks to Dave for rolling out of bed to join us for 5 minutes. Really appreciate that. Thanks always to Paul for his time. Sorry. Dave, you can listen back to the start. I went in on you at the start. I deserved a little bit of time in the sun after the criticism that you both doled out to me last week, which continued off air, by the way. These guys know how to roll with the punches. It's never enjoyable for me. Not that it's never enjoyable. I'm saying, like, I subject myself to it every Monday morning. It's one of the best parts of my week. I really do enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everyone, guys. And we'll be back next week to hopefully talk about United winning at Luton. And be a bit more confident than what we've seen this morning. Take care. Thanks.